Hello and welcome to a new episode of Nile TV Newsroom Live. I'm Rehan Morsi, and if you're watching this show for the very first time, let me reintroduce you to what the show is all about. This show is composed of a number of different segments. First, we take a closer look at the world of politics. Next comes business and finance. And we also learn more about what's happening in the world of technology, in addition to cultural and arts events. And finally, we end with the sports news. We're going to have the politics segment up next after the break. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammed al-Sudani in Cairo on Tuesday. Presidential spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said the president stressed during the meeting in Cairo stance with regards to the stability and security of Iraq. He said the president also expressed appreciation to the depth and strength of strategic ties between the two countries and a keenness to diversify and expand cooperation in various fields, either bilaterally or through a three-way mechanism which includes Jordan. For his part, the Iraqi Prime Minister said his country values the ties with Egypt, which he described as strong and historical. He said Iraq is keen to boost bilateral cooperation mechanisms and benefit from Egyptian expertise in various fields. He said Cairo's role in boosting joint Arab action mechanisms before challenges are highly valued. The Iraqi Prime Minister is visiting Egypt, heading a government delegation, including ministers and the governor of the Iraqi Central Bank, to take part in the higher Egyptian-Iraqi Joint Committee. Also today, the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and the Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed al-Sudani held a joint press conference following the convention of the second round of the higher Egyptian-Iraqi Joint Committee in Cairo. Madbouli said that the visit by the Prime Minister to Egypt reflects a desire to boost bilateral ties. Here's the story. The second round of the higher Egyptian-Iraqi Joint Committee convened in Cairo on Tuesday. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and his Iraqi counterpart Mohammed Shia Sudani held a joint press conference following the convention of the committee. Madbouli said the visit by the Iraqi Prime Minister to Egypt reflects a desire to boost bilateral ties. The Prime Minister added that the convention of the committee reflects a keenness on broadening bilateral cooperation. He stressed that challenges surrounding the region requires the need to intensify efforts for joint action. Madbouli praised the endorsement of the ambitious public budget by the Iraqi government, saying it would have positive effects on cooperation between the two countries. He said Egyptian companies will be ready to take part in rebuilding Iraq. Madbouli said the state is determined to boost partnership and cooperation between Egypt and the Iraqi corporations, and to activate a joint businessman council that is set to increase the volume of trade exchange and investments in both countries. The Premier expressed the Egyptian side's readiness to immediately launch the implementation of reconstruction projects in Iraq. For his part, the Iraqi Prime Minister praised developments to the services and housing fields in Egypt. He said Iraq welcomes Egyptian companies in the country to increase investments between the two countries. Following the committee meetings, 11 cooperation pacts were signed between the two sides in various domains. The Iraqi Prime Minister and his accompanying delegation arrived in Egypt on Monday, a second visit since his appointment. Yesterday, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli received his Iraqi counterpart Mohammed al-Sudani at Cairo airport, accompanied by a high-level delegation. Madbouli held another two meetings to discuss the means of expanding mineral resources and localization of technological industries. He also reviewed measures of supporting the industry sector and increasing the domestic components in several sectors. Also earlier yesterday, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmed al-Tayyib, met with the Iraqi Prime Minister at the Azhar headquarters. During the meeting, al-Tayyib welcomed the Iraqi Premier and asserted a keenness to boost relations between Iraq and the foundation. Al-Tayyib also stressed Al-Azhar's constant support to the Iraqi students and expressed aspirations to enhance scientific advocacy cooperations and to exchange scholarships during the coming period. For his part, Al-Sudani expressed appreciation for the efforts by the Grand Imam to spread sciences of Islam and promote the values of peace, brotherhood and coexistence. And joining us over the phone to tell us more about this visit is Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Good evening to you, Mr. Ambassador.
Yes.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Ambassador.
Good evening.
Sir, can you tell us the importance of having this visit by the Prime Minister of Iraq to Egypt?
We have a lot of interest among the two brother countries since decades. And Iraq is one of the big volume within the Arab fold,
Yes.
Producer of oil. But Iraq suffered recently several wars, whether internally or by occupying part of its land by Turkey. And the importance also, beside trade, investment, that we have an Egyptian community reached 2 million inhabitants in Iraq.
Yes.
This is a treasure for Iraq and for Egypt, of course, that our experts are helping the development in Iraq, especially in the field of agriculture.
Yes.
The idea was, we don't know in Egypt, it's not very common that we know that agriculture is not the favorite sector where Iraqi would like to work. So Egyptians are farmers. Egyptians are old agriculture civilization also.
Yes.
That's why we are there. We are helping Iraq.
So
I think that we can create much more than that of investment, of exchange trade, and I am sure that with the presence of our president and our prime minister and the concerned minister, this will lead, of course, to much more benefits for the two countries.
Sir, the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, along with the Prime Minister, spoke about the rebuilding process of Iraq after it had been pummeled for many years due to a lot of factors. Do you think that the Egyptian investments within Iraq will be helpful in rebuilding infrastructure for Iraq?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I tell you that I know that many of our construction companies are there to rebuild Iraq. The budget of rebuilding Iraq is huge, and it's billions. I remember that when some European countries were not with the invasion of America to Iraq, Iraq threatened them that they will not benefit from the projects of rebuilding Iraq. And then they behave. This shows you that even big countries and very rich countries are eager to come and to see the opportunities to invest and to build in Iraq. And Iraq, it's not a poor country. After all, it's an oil producer, and it can depend on itself. What we need, that we want to see one united Iraq without saying Sunni or Shia or Kurdi or Arab. These divisions are not at all working for the benefit of Iraq.
Yes, also the President, along with the Prime Minister, spoke about activation of protocols between Iraq, Egypt and Jordan as well. What does this actually include? Absolutely.
This is what we call sub-regional group.
Yes.
We have, of course, the umbrella of the Arab League. Then if some fewer countries agree to go furthermore, to deepen in the relation and widen the scope of the relation, then we see this tripartite group, which is Egypt, Iraq, and Jordan. I hope that Syria can join when Syria will become in a stable position. Yemen used to be with us during President Abdurrahman Saleh.
Yes.
So, of course, we are establishing a sub-regional group which is ready to go furthermore than the Arab League reached up till now.
Yes, and also the Iraqi Prime Minister had visited Al-Azhar and met with Sheikh Ahmed al-Tayyib, and they spoke about the role of Al-Azhar and so forth. Is this a move by Iraq to send more students, I suppose, from Iraq to Al-Azhar to build a more middle ground, I suppose a middle ground, because you know Iraq had suffered for a very long time from extremist ideologies, including
You are absolutely right, because I am, as an old diplomat, I am always proud of the activities and performance of our Al-Azhar al-Sharif in the Arab world and in Far Asia. In Africa, I personally helped a lot there, and I'm proud of what Al-Azhar is doing. Also, Al-Azhar is hosting thousands of students from all over the world and the Arab world and Iraq, of course. This is why I see that this visit is very important in order to make sure that we are on the right track with the fastest ways in order to make our relation even more strong, and we have all the possibilities to do that.
Yes. My final question for you, sir, is about the Iraqi expertise. Can they also help benefit Egypt, especially when it comes to the use of natural resources like gas and oil exploration?
Yes, of course, and Egypt is open to benefit from all the experience. I am proud to tell you that Egypt is one of the largest countries hosting embassies, experts, foreign experts, and we are benefiting from technical assistance all over the world. Why not from Iraq?
Yes.
And of course, we help Iraq in certain sectors. They help us in other sectors.
Okay, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, the former assistant to the foreign minister, thank you so much for joining us over the phone. We're going to take a short break and move on. The United States and Saudi Arabia on Sunday strongly condemned the resumption of violence in Sudan after a 24-hour ceasefire between the warring parties had expired. Airstrikes, artillery and gunfire rocked several areas of Sudan's capital on Monday as fighting between the warring factions intensified for a second day, trapping civilians in a worsening humanitarian crisis. Airstrikes, artillery and gunfire had rocked the city and they trapped many people. The war between the country's armies and paramilitary rapid support forces had raged for almost 2 months, forcing almost 2 million to flee and wrecking the economy, causing frequent electricity and water outages. Talks in Jeddah have failed to permanently end fighting, and clashes intensified as soon as a ceasefire ended on Sunday. While the RSF has spread out across most of the capital, controlling main streets and setting up camps inside some homes, the army has the advantage of air and artillery weaponry. Residents of eastern Khartoum reported being hit by airstrikes, while in southern Khartoum as well as northern Durman reported being hit by artillery fighting. Eyewitnesses reported clashes in central Khartoum, as well as more than 200,000 of the 1.9 million Sudanese who have managed to flee their homes have gone to Egypt. Medical charity MSF said on Monday that thousands of Sudanese refugees who fled to Chad to escape fighting in their country could be cut off from humanitarian and medical aid during the approaching of rainy season. Kenya's President William Ruto vowed Monday to arrange face-to-face meetings between Sudan's warring generals to end the crisis roiling the country after multiple ceasefires had failed to hold. Still in the Middle East, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas began an official 4-day visit to China on Tuesday that comes as Beijing is seeking a larger role in the Middle East politics. During his visit, President Abbas meets senior Chinese officials to discuss the latest developments of the Palestinian cause and bilateral relations. Abbas is also due to witness with his Chinese counterpart the signing of a number of agreements. In announcing the visit, China's foreign ministry said China was willing to help broker relations between the Palestinian Authority and the Israeli government that have deteriorated to its lowest levels in recent years. Former President Donald Trump arrived in Miami to face charges of hoarding classified documents in a legal reckoning that goes far beyond misconduct accusations. Former U.S. President has largely ridden out until now. Here's the story. Donald Trump is due to surrender on Tuesday to face dozens of felony charges of mishandling U.S. government secrets in the most serious yet of a firestorm of criminal probes threatening to derail his bid to win back the White House. After a 25-minute motorcade journey from his golf course in Miami to the city's federal courthouse, the former president is expected to deny 37 counts of unlawfully retaining classified documents and obstructing the government's efforts to get them back. The 49-page indictment, dismissed by Trump as ridiculous, includes photographs showing boxes of documents stacked at Mar-a-Lago, his Palm Beach residence, in a ballroom and in a bathroom and shower. Turning 77 on Wednesday, Trump is accused of willfully hoarding dozens of clearly marked government secrets he took unlawfully to his beachfront mansion in Florida upon leaving office in 2021, refusing to return them and conspiring to obstruct investigators seeking to recover them. He is also charged with sharing sensitive U.S. secrets with people who had no security clearance in much more serious cases than any he has previously faced, with charges that can carry decades-long prison sentences. The runaway frontrunner in the 2024 Republican primary has vowed to stay in the race regardless of the outcome of the document case. Trump is expected to fly to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, after Tuesday's hearing to restate his innocence in a speech before supporters. His legal woes are only just beginning as he faces multiple felony counts in the New York fraud case surrounding Stormy Daniels, set for trial next March. Devoted supporters of the Republican leader have been out on the streets since the eve of the hearing, with security ramped up around the courthouse as police braced for thousands-strong protests and the possibility of violence. Used the first public appearance since his federal indictment to ratchet up attacks on the Justice Department, accusing prosecutors without evidence of a politically motivated campaign to keep him from the White House. Speaking on Saturday at a Georgia State Republican convention, Trump alleged that President Joe Biden, a Democrat, orchestrated the criminal charges in order to undermine his main political rival's presidential campaign, as well as to distract from federal and congressional investigation into Biden's son. There is no evidence to support Trump's allegation. The Justice Department maintains that all its investigative decisions are made without regard to partisan politics. Trump's remarks came one day after prosecutors unsealed a 37-count indictment against him, alleging he mishandled classified documents and includes some of the country's most sensitive security secrets after leaving the White House in 2021. Prosecutors allege the former president held on to material, including documents about the U.S. nuclear program. The 49-page indictment also detailed 2 instances in which Trump allegedly shared information with people not authorized to receive it. The indictment of a former U.S. president on federal charges is unprecedented in American history. Trump said that he will continue running for president even if he were to be convicted. Joining us over the phone to tell us more about this is Dr. Sharif Amir, a professor of international relations. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, can you tell us a bit about these indictments? How serious is it really for the former president?
Well, it's very serious because it's very obvious that what's going on now is a huge counter-attack against former President Donald Trump after he decided to the candidate for the elections of 2024, presidential elections. So I think that there is a huge war now to settle the accounts with him. He has many reprisals. Well, he just mentioned in the report that there are no evidence supporting Trump's allegations about the Biden family. Well, if I could correct you, there are numerous problems for the Biden family in the United States.
Yes.
Legal problems for Hunter Biden also.
Yes.
So I think that he has the proof, he has the evidence. The problem is the media. The media is not giving him any chance to speak out. They don't want him to bring these issues up to the public.
Yes, but it's the general prosecution itself that's actually saying it's not the media. They're saying that, yes, there is a case when it comes to Hunter Biden and the current U.S. president as well for documents in his home, but it's not as serious as the former President Donald Trump says.
Well, the prosecution, we all know that he accused them of being, that many of them are nominated by the Democrats, and they have the authority of nominating many of the prosecutors there. So it's not very clear if they have really brought the truth to the people about this case. Yes. Well, let's say that President Trump is trying to defend himself by all the means. I think that he will suffer a lot in the coming days. He could be indicted, but he counts on his popularity among many Americans, because the economic situation now in the United States and the billions of dollars that are spent in Ukraine without any reason now is big question mark to the American electors. Yes. Where is this money is going, and why we are spending this money, and why the economic situation is not going well. Add to that, the United States lost most of its allies in the Middle East. Look at Saudi Arabia now. Yes. Saudi Arabia was the major ally of the United States, while the Biden administration just lost it. They cannot reduce, they asked them to increase the oil production, they refused. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman was very clear. He had many problems with the Biden administration. He had excellent relations with President Trump. All that reflects on the American economy. The fact that China and Russia now are getting more and more stronger also, this reflects on the administration. President Trump, former President Trump, said it numerous times that he will continue this fight against all these charges, and in the same time, he will fight relentlessly to get back to the White House, because he thinks that the war in Ukraine could be stopped in 24 hours. He's capable of reshaping the American economy again. So that's why he's betting on these.
Yes, I'm sorry to cut you off there, but may I ask you, I mean, these allegations are very serious. The indictments against the former president are very serious. One of them includes sharing classified documents with people not authorized. Will the prosecution seek judgment for it, or indictments when it comes to treason? Will they try him for treason in this case?
Well, the Capitol Hill in Washington, it's very, very discreet about many things, because former candidate Hillary Clinton had the same problem.
Yes,
and it was
emails, yes.
The emails and all the classified documents, they were all released under her as Secretary of State.
Yes.
And she was not brought to justice. So I think this is the whole thing about, I repeat also the media there, that they're focusing on Trump on this case, and as the Democrats, there are similar cases, and Hillary Clinton was the first. So I think that Trump is betting on the actions of the people. If he will be really charged and put in prison and tried for treason, I think he would be in the mainstream media, yes, a traitor, and yes, someone who should be banned from political activities. But for ordinary Americans, he was the one who is a martyr now. He wanted to make America great again. So he's going on with this
with his campaign.
He's very smart. He knows that he has to be portrayed as a martyr.
Yes.
He wants to be portrayed as the martyr, the hero of the people. Okay. And this will help him a lot.
Okay.
Because everyone in the United States knows that he had many secrets about the deep state in the Capitol Hill, and they don't want him to talk.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time. So, Dr. Sharif Amir, a professor of international relations, thank you so much for joining us over the phone.
Thank you.
We're going to take a short break and move on with the rest of the episode. Ample courage and a honed jungle smarts have been hailed as the main reason for 4 indigenous children who managed to stay alive in Colombia's Amazon jungle for 40 days after surviving a plane crash. Against all odds, siblings Leslie Saloni, Tian Nornell, and Kristen, ages 13, 9, 5, and 1 respectively, were found weak but alive on Friday after a massive search. The children had been traveling with their mother, who died in the aftermath of a crash on May 1st that killed the 2 other adults on the small plane. For the first days after the crash, the children stayed near the plane wreck, eating whatever food they had found on board. When their food dwindled, the children decided to try to find a way out of the rainforest, a place teeming with wild animals and armed guerrillas. On their odyssey, the children ate palm fruit and wild mangoes, fruits from the jungle. Search team members, they had also grazed on seeds, roots, and other plants they were able to identify as edible. It was enough to keep them alive, though the children were found weak. Leslie brought a soda bottle with her from the plane and followed a path near the river so they would always have something to drink. Along with the bottle Leslie brought from the crash site, she also packed a suitcase with a tarpaulin, a towel, a flashlight, and some clothes. The children had used these to build rudimentary shelter, which they moved several times. They slept on the towel on the ground. Colombia's Defense Ministry has given a special nod to Leslie, saying it is thanks to her courage and her leadership that the 3 others were able to survive. Leslie is clearly very intelligent given her selection of items for the suitcase. The rescuers covered more than 2,600 kilometers only to finally find the children some 5 kilometers from the wreck. Siblings are receiving medical and psychological care. Moving to the world of business and finance, the Ministry of International Cooperation and the South Korean Embassy in Cairo signed a development financing agreement worth $460 million on Tuesday. The Minister of International Cooperation, Rami Al-Mashad, said the agreement is to supply 40 train units for the 2nd and 3rd lines of the metro. This came through a concessional financing channel provided through the Korean Cooperation Fund for Economic Development of Export-Import of Korea. The minister added the new project enhances Egypt's efforts to localize industry and reflects promising prospects for partnership with South Korea. South Korea had chosen Egypt to become the strategic partnership in the coming 5 years. Iraq's parliament on Monday approved a 2023 budget of $198.9 trillion that sets out record spending on the growing public wage bill and development projects to improve services and rebuild infrastructure ruined by neglect and war. The budget deficit is estimated at a record 64.36 trillion Iraqi dinars, more than double the last budget deficit in 2021, according to a budget document and lawmakers. The budget is based on an oil price of $70 per barrel and projects oil exports at 3.5 million barrels per day, including 400,000 barrels per day from the semi-autonomous Kurdistan region. The budget sets the exchange rate for oil revenues in the US dollars at 1,300 dinars per dollar. will remain valid through 2025, though it is subject to amendment, including to the oil price it uses, given its near total dependence on oil revenue. The budget adds more than 500,000 new public sector workers, hiring that flies in the face of recommendations of many observers who say Iraq should tighten fiscal policy. The IMF, in May 31st note, said the increasing public wage bill would contribute to mounting deficits and financial pressure, barring a big increase in oil prices. To break even, Iraq required an oil price of $96 per barrel, while the price averaged at $71 per barrel in May. The World Bank must use informed risk-taking to encourage private investors to get more engaged in helping developing countries deal with climate change and leapfrog fossil fuel energy sources, its new president Ajay Banga said on Sunday. Banga said that efforts are now underway to stretch the World Bank's lending capacity and revamp its business model that could potentially free up billions of dollars, but not the estimated trillions of dollars needed to ensure a just energy transition. Affordable electricity was a key starting point for social and economic development in emerging economies, but new solutions were needed to avoid the emissions-intensive growth model followed by advanced economies, or there was no hope for curbing emissions by 2050. The Indian-born executive was nominated by the U.S. for the job precisely because of his previous work in the private sector, and he has pledged to identify barriers for greater investment and find ways to maximize the bank's impact. Joining us over the phone is Dr. Mohammed Rushdi, an economic expert. Good evening to you, sir.
Hello, good evening to you and our audience.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Sir, can you tell us a bit about the World Bank's new strategy along with its new president? It's more focused towards developing countries and climate change and how to combat the effects of it. Why is this something that is the main focus of the World Bank right now?
Excuse me?
The World Bank's new president had pledged to help developing economies combat the effects of climate change and invest in climate change projects as well. Why is this an important focus for the World Bank right now?
First of all, I would like to start with the famous quote that the only constant in life is change, and nowadays there is a global trend to decrease our carbon footprint, to have to keep our world in a good way, and to leave it to our children in a good manner to best utilize it. And I would like to share with you and our audience some facts, which is according to research, climate change could drive to 116 million people to migrate within their own countries by 2050, with hot thoughts of internal migration emerging as soon as 2030, spreading and intensifying after. Climate change could cut crop yields, especially in the world's most food-insure regions. At the same time, agriculture, forestry, and land use change are responsible for about, as far as I recall, 25% of greenhouse gas. The agriculture sector is core to addressing the climate shock. According to the president is trying to focus, the president for the World Bank is trying to focus on climate change and to have to use sustainable energy. And this is one of the most important and crucial things that all COP meetings is focusing on it, actually to decrease our carbon footprint and to keep our world to our children. This there was an old code which said that we didn't inherit the earth from our ancestors. We just borrow it from our children. For that reason, we are investing nowadays in sustainable energy and projects. We have to maintain our world
Yes.
climate and avoid the huge climate change that we can face it now.
Yes, sir, the World Bank had also, or the head of the World Bank had also said that they're trying to revamp the business model for the World Bank, trying to free up money to invest in climate-friendly businesses, as well as to help developing countries counter the effects of climate change. But they said that it'll only be within the billions of dollars, when in fact the world needs trillions of dollars to do this. How can the World Bank or any other lending operator help meet this deficit, or close the gap between the deficit itself?
As you know, our audience, we, we have a limited resources. In terms of the scope of individual countries, governments, the entire world, we have limited resources. And we have to best utilize our resources in an efficient way. And there's a great difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Efficiency is the most important thing. You can do things in an effective way, but you are wasting some resources, actually. But sorry, we efficient way, but you have to keep the resources. There's difference between
Yes.
effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness that
Yes.
you do is, and you can.
I'm sorry to cut you off there, sir, but unfortunately we're out of time, so I'm going to have to cut you off there, but maybe we can talk about this later on. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohammed Wajdi, an economic expert, for joining us. We're going to take a short break and move on. Wages in the UK sharply spiked in April. Official data showed a development that is set to cement expectations that the Bank of England will raise interest rates once again next week. Here's the story.
UK unemployment eased in the 3 months to the end of April, but wage rises continue to lag inflation. The unemployment rate decreased to 3.8% from 3.9% in the 3 months to the end of March, the Office of the National Statistics said in the statement. Morgan said the number of people in work had passed in the pre-pandemic level for the first time, setting a new high. Wages in the UK spiked sharply in April. Official figures showed on Tuesday a development that is set to cement expectations that the Bank of England will raise interest rates once again next week. The Office of National Statistics found that people's regular pay packets, which exclude bonuses, were up 7.2% in the 3 months to April, as against the equivalent 6.6% increase recorded in January. The spike, which was largely due to a near 10% increase in the minimum wage at the start of April, was the highest on record aside from the period of the coronavirus pandemic, when the figures were heavily distorted. Though wages are still lagging the headline rate of inflation, which at the last count stood at 8.7%, the increase is likely to feature heavily in next week's deliberations among rate setters at the Bank of England.
In the world of science and technology, ahead of Japan's planned release of a contaminated wastewater from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant in the summer, some South Korean shoppers are buying salt and seafood in bulk to store at home, and retailers are stockpiling in fear of a supply shortage. Here's the story.
Ahead of Japan's planned release of contaminated wastewater from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant in the summer, some South Korean shoppers are buying salt and seafood in bulk to store at home, and retailers are stockpiling in fear of a supply shortage. South Korea's fisheries authorities have vowed to ramp up efforts to monitor natural salt farms for any rise in the radioactive substances and maintain a ban on seafood from the waters near Fukushima. But their efforts have not stopped some people from buying a lot more than they need, worried about the potential health hazards stemming from Japan's move. While Seoul and Tokyo have taken steps in recent months to mend ties made by historic disputes, Japan's plan to release more than 1 million tons of contaminated water from the destroyed Fukushima power plant remains continuous for its closest neighbor. More than 85% of the South Korean public opposed Japan's plan, according to surveys last month by local pollster Research View. 7 in 10 people said they will consume less seafood if the wastewater release goes ahead. Sea salt prices have gone up by nearly 27% in the first week of June from 2 months ago, according to South Korea's Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, but the ministry attributed the uptick in price more to poor weather in recent months and a fall in production, not to panic buying.
In sports, aiming to follow in the footsteps of Portugal and France, 4 of Europe's strongest sides this week battle to win the 3rd edition of the UEFA Nations League. Hosts the Netherlands face Croatia in Rotterdam on Wednesday in the first semi-final, while Spain and Italy clash in Eindhoven on Thursday ahead of Sunday's final. None of the Final Four have won a trophy in over a decade except for Italy, although the Euro 2020 champions have plenty to prove themselves after failing to qualify for the 2022 World Cup. The 2-yearly tournaments began in 2018, giving European nations more competitive fixtures instead of international friendlies, with the 4 group winners of the strongest A tier reaching the Final Four. Top-seeded Maria Sakkari won her opening match at the Nottingham Open on Monday, while former champion Donovic, who also advanced to the last 16 at the grass court tournament. Sakkari, the number 8 ranked Greek, beat Chu Wang of China 6-2, 7-6, after which of Croatia defeated Kristina Bukasa of Spain 6-2, 4-6, 6-1. Bikic won the event in 2017 and lost the final in 19. Beatriz Haddad Maia of Brazil is the defending champion in Nottingham and is coming off reaching the semi-finals at the French Open last week. She plays Tuesday along with a slew of British players, including British number 1 Katie Boulter, who has taken over from Emma Radonko. Eritrean Beniam Greme won a mass sprint to take the 2nd stage of the Tour of Switzerland on Monday, with local rider Stefan Kung retaining the race lead. At the end of the 137-kilometer ride between Boromonster and Notwill, Grime, riding for Team Watney, slipped into an opening left by Wout van Aert, who broke too early to finish ahead of Frenchman Arnaud Démare. Belgian Van Aert was 3rd. Grime added the stage win to a victory in the Giro d'Italia last year, as he took advantage of one of the few opportunities left to sprinters in the mountainous race. This brings us to the end of this edition of Nile TV Newsroom Live. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for more.